and not to mention the idea that they're planning to bring back the show 40 years after it was cancelled, which I don't know if they knew at the time, but it does have parallels to the revival that would come 2 years later with the announcement of the revival in 2003. But at the time of them writing the story or recording the story, heck, it might even have only gone out not around the same time. I don't know. I have to check when it came out, September or October 2003 or August even. But certainly in mid to late 2003, it would have come out. Around that same time, they'd be announcing the revival and their intentions to bring back Doctor Who. And yeah, so that's actually nice parallels, even if that wasn't intentional. Unless they're presuming someone's going to bring it back within the next couple of years. Who wrote this one? Robert Shearman. Maybe. I mean, I know there was one Paul Cornell and Mark Gatiss were trying to do. Ultimately, it was Russell T Davies who ended up bringing the show back. Of course, as we now know, Sainsbury's, that's good enough as Sainsbury's works just as well as any supermarket, so that's absolutely fine being in this audio. No problems there. And Nicholas Briggs apparently does all of his shopping at Sainsbury's. That might be a slight exaggeration. I know I don't do all of my shopping just at Sainsbury's. I also do Tesco, Asda, Morrison's, Waitrose, Aldi, Lidl, a couple of others, and also the local news agents, local shops. You know, you don't just have to go to one supermarket. So I think Nick Briggs is just exaggerating. So Sainsbury's are happy. Whether they're happy happy with them being in the audio, whether they're happy with the audio is another question. And it sees the Doctor and Susan. Well, actually, no, they're more. Typically, they're between 20 and 45. Usually around the 30 to 35. Usually between 25 and 35. But yeah, they're the typical Big Finish 4-parter story of roughly half an hour, in this case 30 to 45 minutes as well. Not to mention there's also this subplot where these Time Lords are trying to find the Doctor and they try to cause a hoax alien event. It actually doesn't work. It's actually another supposed alien event that causes the Doctor to run into action. They actually managed to capture her properly. They actually managed to capture her by using their brains later on in the audio. They actually managed to use their brains and they managed to catch her. And then they just let her off after a supposed trial where they supposedly sentenced her to death, but they don't really care, so they just let her go. Leaving the door open for more Arabella Weir Doctor stories, but to be honest, unlike with Jeffrey Bayldon and David Warner, I don't really want to see hear any more Arabella Weir stories, unless they're going to do something a little bit different, where maybe they'll give her a proper time and space story where she doesn't get drunk so much, where she doesn't have all this human stuff getting in the way, or maybe she'll go back and visit her friends. Actually, that might not be so good in the long run. But, you know, I'm not really as into hearing more weird Doctor stories as Bayldon or Warner. The other ones, they kind of get stuck where they, at the end of their story, so there's no chance of a follow-up for them. Not really, especially for Deadline. This one is probably this one opens it up for further adventures, but none have been done. Probably because this is the weakest one, so no one was that excited to hear them. Okay, we're getting a bit too long now, otherwise we'll be going into the other videos length territory. So, a bit like what they did a few times with the 6th and sometimes with the 5th Doctor, where they would have the longer 2-part episodes, where they'd be about an hour to an hour, where they'd be about an hour and a quarter-ish in length in episodes, and so kind of like resembling the 45-minute episodes of Classic Who, whilst the 4-parter or 6-parter sometimes, or the 1 or 3-parters or 2-parters would represent the shorter ones. That is, represent the 4-part Classic Who stories. They would represent that with the 25-minute length episode ones in their versions, and then the longer ones would represent the 45-minute episode versions as 45-minute episodes. And this one is pretty much that case. It's a bit more like that. yeah, I mean, if you can do a sequel to Exile, you can do a sequel to Storm of Angels and Masters of War, if they ever decide to do those. If you wanted to do 4 more audios, then you could do those 2, and then you could do 1 for Atkinson and 1 for Lumley, and then you can decide what else you want. If you wanted to do another series of 6, or maybe like I say, Exiles left the door open for Arabella Weir to come back for another story. If not, just do another Baildon and Warner 2 story. If not, just do another story for Baildon and another one for Warner. Because those ones that, especially with Warner, they're definitely getting multiple stories by this point. Well, so were 2 for Baildon, and Warner 2 Unbound and Further Adventures with Bernie Summerfield, Benny for short. And actually read a blog about a review by one person of the first 7. I think it was out before the 8th one came out, and yeah, he wasn't a fan of He Jests at Scars or or Exile. Loved Deadline and Storm of Angels, and I think Old Morality as well. Wasn't a big fan of Sympathy for the Devil, but still liked it. Thought Fell Fathom Fire was up his street. So that's nothing special to this video. I've been doing that for a couple of videos lately anyway. Excuse me. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. Welcome to this special video. I'm sorry, no, start again. This is also the first audio story as far as I'm aware. It's certainly the first. It's certainly 12 years before the last adventure series. Before the final adventure. No. Where's my 6th Doctor? Brink of Death. Okay, do that bit again. This story is in the act who plays David Warner and Jeffrey Baildon, there's also the act who there's 2 actors from Sympathy from the Devil who go on to be in Doctor Who as other characters. One of them as a doctor, and the other as a few characters. Mark Gatiss and David Tennant and Mark Gatiss, and in Sympathy for the Devil. And in Exile, the 6th audio, in the Baildon story, it's not in Exile. In this one, and as for this one, what is going on? And as for this one, it just, what? And as for this one just leaves me more confused than Sympathy. Exile leaves the door open, and as you can tell, it's written. Oh, David Jacobi. This is, yeah, quite a few new Doctor Who actors are appearing in quite a lot of these stories. Well, I knew it. And around that same time, there would have been the revival planning and and around that same time, they would have announced the revival after planning that, and they'd be ready to make it. And, unless they're going off the anyway. So anyway, fantastic work as usual, and gets herself pissed drunk. That might be a slight exit. That might be a slight exit. What's the word? Exaggeration. Which people will also hate me for giving praise to, because Chris Chibnall is apparently the worst person ever at the current. Which people will also hate me for giving praise to, because lots of people will hate me for, because oh god, the Vanguard side of me is coming out. Or is it Zagreus? No! Burping half another billion times, and burping twice as many, and twice. Well, basically, this story is about what if the and this story sees what if the and this story asks what is the 25 to 45 minute episodes. And yeah, it's a bit strange going from 60 to 85. It's quite fun trying to. Actually, it's two 60 to 80 minute episodes. So actually, it's two 60 to 70 minute episodes. Yeah, and this is probably the first time I've been expecting Davros, and it's not. Yeah, to me, there seems to be some sort of attachment between her and also, of course, whilst the Brigadier stays behind at the very end. I have to spoil that bit. And whilst the Brigadier, please check out my Nicholas Payne Retro channel review for more 7 out of 10. 4005. That goes to Exile. No, it doesn't. That's the worst one. It goes to Deadline, and Exile is also my least favourite as well. Whoopsies. Yeah, and while I don't, 4 of them are good, except one which isn't that. But anyway, well, Dave, there's no more Unbound Doctors. There's other alternative Doctors, like Noel Clarke in the Daleks audios. But yeah, and the Richard E. Grant 9th Schalke Doctor. Anyway, that's it. That's it from me. Thank you for. They might think T-Jess of Scars is one of the weaker. Well, I put it as one of the weakest ones, but I meant. So he's going to agree with me to an extent on those two. Completely. So he's going to agree with me on Deadline and to an extent on Exile. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official The Whoniversals YouTube channel. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne bonus content YouTube channel.